Good morning. Here we are back at Temple Baptist Church in the Shiloh Sunday School class, and getting ready to look at something that as J. Vernon McGee says, where the rubber hits the road. And this, confessing right up, this has been a hard lesson for me to study, because I feel like I fall so short in these areas that we're talking about. But anyway, to begin with this morning, Jesus has been beginning his Galilean ministry. He has preached his Sermon on the Mount. He has come down off the mount a little bit, and he has got followers that are following him. By now he has acquired a following of quite a lot of people, lay people. People have come from as far up the coast as Tyre and Sidon, and all the way back down from all over Israel, and his reputation is expanding as being a teacher and somebody that's full of wisdom and stature and all of that stuff. And so now, anyway, he has done the Sermon on the Mount. He's dropped back down to the flat from the foothills there, and he's on a plain. And this is sometimes called the Sermon on the Plain, that are where we're at here in chapter 6 today. And we drop on down there, and he's talking to the people, and he's teaching some more Beatitudes, actually, in those first verses. Well, it begins in chapter 17, and then down to about 27, it talks about these Beatitudes, and then he kind of reverses course on them a little bit, and he begins to list some woes to people that are some people that have let money run their lives, ruin their lives, maybe might be a better way to put it, because the woes that he pronounces on them, he says, "But woe unto you that are rich, for you have deceived your consolation," or your comfort. You have received, and I said deceived, the word there is received, your consolation or your comfort, or your comfort in your life is through your money. And the implication there is you've really missed the boat in his teaching. The love of money is it's a downer for us, and Jesus is not teaching there that having money or having resources is bad, but that love of that money and letting it guide your life rather than letting the Lord guide your life is not going to bring you anything but problems in your life. And then he says, "Woe unto you that are full, for you shall hunger. Woe unto you that laugh now, for you shall mourn and weep." And that again, spiritually speaking, people that make a joke out of everything, people that think that way and feel that way, hard times are coming for them. And bearing in mind, Jesus is the Messiah. He's the one. He knows what's coming down the road for all of them and all of Jerusalem, and already they are under the rough, tough hand of the Roman soldiers, and they're hating it, and the good times are about over, and that's kind of what he's talking about there. And he says, "Woe unto you when all men shall speak well of you, for so did their fathers to the false prophets." And he's just saying, woe to you that are two-faced. You can be something one day and then talking behind somebody's back the next day. And he's saying this is not right. This is bad, and this is not what you need to be doing. But then he begins, and actually this is where the lesson today begins, in chapter 20 or chapter 16 or chapter 6 and verse 27. I really have studied this. I know where I'm at. Just got tongue tied up there for a little bit. But he says, and that's what he said, but, the very first word. And that but is like a pivot. He's gone from speaking to the people to his disciples, to what will be his apostles. He said here, but I say unto you, and that's who he's talking to. He's dividing them out again, or there, and he's going to teach this lesson to the people that are going to bear the brunt of the ministry. These are the guys that are going to have to walk the walk and talk the talk. They've got to do that. And he said, but I say unto you, the disciples, which hear, love your enemies and do good to them which hate you. Now this is where, I can honestly say, if I, with my Bible in my hands, I don't hate anybody. There's some people I like better than others, and I think that's natural. But I can honestly say I don't hate anybody on this earth that I know. I've never had that in me to be that way or to carry grudges. But yet when I see this, sometimes we do have enemies. And he said in the very last verse down here, in verse 26, he said, woe unto you when all people shall speak well of you. If you are testifying for the Lord when you have an opportunity, Brother Steve preached Sunday about that. So that was part of his sermon, and preaching on that. I just had an opportunity that next day to witness to a lady, and she's old and not far from having to meet her Maker. And I thought right off the bat when that opportunity come up, I thought, now are you going to listen to what God's Word told you to do, or are you going to crawfish out of this thing and not do it? So anyway, I jumped into it with both feet, and we took it as far as she would allow me to take it. The only thing that I can say considering that is that she is without excuse. If she's never heard the gospel before, she has heard it now. And so that's, that from there on, it's up to her. The seeds have been planted, and then I'll go back and talk to her again, and as time goes on. But when you seed your speech with the things of God, a lot of people don't like that. And if you're not doing that, and everybody that you know wants to think that you're just a good old boy, then you're probably not doing your job as a Christian. And I know that's hard, but this has been hard on me all week, so y'all bear with me for a little while here, and we'll get through this. But he says, do good to them that hate you. And I don't know, I think in our society today, this word hate is thrown out there like love, and it doesn't even mean what it's supposed to mean anymore. When you see this, but when you have an opportunity to do good that you may have head bumping issues with, do good to them people. And when you do, it will kind of smooth out the rough edges sometimes. It's always easier to be able to discuss than it is to argue, because arguments don't settle anything. Discussions do sometimes. Sometimes they don't, but then if we try and we go the extra mile, we can come to a situation where we can get along and maybe move forward with whatever our issues may be. And that's what Jesus is teaching these disciples here. When he says this, he says, love your enemies. And boy, sometimes sometimes they're just people that you just don't get along with. My practice, and I don't know if it's really good, I just try to stay away from them, because I detest arguing, and I just will not hardly do that. Anyhow, moving on with that, he goes on and he says, bless them that curse you, and pray for them which despitefully use you. When you're doing the best you can, and you're doing what you know to do, sometimes people will take advantage of that and use that against you. in different ways. And Jesus is telling these disciples that's going to happen. He's forewarning them that these things are going to occur. And how you deal with these issues are the things that's going to make or break you as a disciple and later as an apostle. And, you know, we think about those 12 and we say, okay, that's all right for them guys, but we're in the same boat. We're all together in this. And this is the thing that again, do good to those that would use you. And it's going to happen, but don't carry a grudge about it. Do your best, and then move on from that. He said, and unto him that smite thee on a cheek, offer also the other. And you know that I see this a lot. I hear people talking about this, and that's hard to take. You know, don't slap me. We're not going to get along very well if you do. But the talk about this really is things that people can say things to you and will say things to you that are just like a slap in the face. And the lesson there is don't retaliate. That yeah but thing that is so prevalent. I say that a lot, and it's a habit, and I wish I wouldn't, but yet that can get to be, Jesus says don't do that. He said when people say those bad things about you, and he said, you know, when they do, just let it go. Try to let it be like water off a duck's back, and realize that they're going to have their day, and Jesus is the one that will see to that. And by being a friend, by being somebody that's at least agreeable in some ways, in the ways that you can be, who knows but what that will strengthen your testimony to that individual. And that, I think that's what he's saying right there. He said to him that take away thy cloak, forbid not him to take thy coat also, and to give. That's one thing that I have. We have been going to church here for almost 20 years, and that's a long time. And this church, while we're small in a lot of ways, this is the most giving church I think I have ever seen. Not that I've been in a whole bunch of churches, but I know that in the disasters that we have had where we were able to help with that, the whole church was involved in just helping in whatever way we could. And you know, with our floods and our ice storm and different things that have come down the pike like that, and this church has worked. And we've had people actually living in this very room that were that came from out of town. But that makes me proud to be a Southern Baptist, that we do we have that outreach, that disaster recovery thing, and that's a big thing in Southern Baptist circles. And so anyway, it makes you proud to be a Southern Baptist and to want to be a part of that. But anyway, I have to move on with that. He said, give to every man that asketh of thee, and of him that taketh away thy goods, ask them not again. You know, we should be generous people. We should be people that will go the extra mile to give to people in need, and then not expect it back. Don't be going back and say, well, I loaned you my coat here about 6 months ago. Can I get it back or anything? Just let that go. Let it go. And bearing in mind now, he's talking to these 12 disciples here. He's Judas Iscariot's still there, and he's part of that group, and he's trying to teach. It's amazing that Jesus never stopped teaching the whole time that he was on this earth. when we next lesson we'll see that he began his ministry when he was about 30 years old, and then he was crucified then when he was about 33, and we're not going to nickel and dime around about a year or so, 2,000 years ago, way over. But that's my concept. That's what I believe that in the time frame that teaches. And so here he is. He is doing that and starting again this Galilean ministry. And we'll talk about that more in next week's Sunday school lesson. But to get back with this again, he said, this, what we call the golden rule, he said, as you would that men should do to you, do you also to them likewise. And it doesn't say do it to them first. It just says do it to them likewise. How treat people the way you want to be treated. And there'll be good results from that. They really will be. Now, not everybody's going to be agreeable with us all the time, but we live in a day that, and I really don't like this, but we live in a day where people are too disrespectful to one another. I've seen things that, and I know you all have too, at Walmart and every place you go, where people are so disrespectful to one another. And that's sad. And you know, we don't want to be treated with disrespect, and nor should we disrespect anybody else. It's just not the way that we should do. And you know, we have this thing that's we see around a lot, this WWJD, what would Jesus do? And if we can take the time to think about that before these issues come up, maybe we do a little better. I think somewhere, I read it somewhere, and I don't know where because this has been some years ago, but I might have even heard a preacher say it, but I tried to adapt to this philosophy, and sometimes I do it, and I think most of the time I do it, sometimes I don't, but this concept of if something that kind of ouches me or it sticks me and digs me, and I try to think, now what difference is this going to make a year from now? And I try to live with that philosophy about these downers that come into all our lives. I'm not special in that way at all. I have my share of problems and have had in the past, but if I can take the time in my mind to say, you know, what difference is this going to make in my life or their life a year from now, that solves a whole world of problems right there. And he goes on in there and he said, for if you love them, which he's got a section there. He said, if you love people that love you, what difference does it make? You know, you're just doing what you ought to do. And so where's the thanks in that? And for sinners also love those that love them. And he said, if you do to them which do good to you, what is it to you? What thanks do you have for that? For sinners also do that the same. And what he's saying, we as Christians have to be different. We have to be separated from the world, but we have to deal with the world. And in that process of dealing with people, we have to be set apart. We have to act different and be different. You can't just act different without being different, because people will see through that in a blink. They will see through that. And he said, if you lend to them of whom you hope to receive, what thanks have you? For sinners also lend to sinners to receive as much or receive interest again. That's the world. That's just part of living on this earth. But we again, and there's another conjunction there that comes right back up here towards the end of the lesson. He says, but love your enemies and do good and lend, hoping for nothing again. You know, if I give something to somebody or I lend something to somebody, then I'm not going to ding dong them to death to get it back, to worry about those kind of things. Those are not things that I need to worry about. It says, but love your enemies and do good and lend, hoping for nothing again, and your reward shall be great. And you know, part of that reward is just being at peace with your fellow man. I don't have anything out there at my house that I'm really married to except the wife. And you know, there's things that are important to me, but in the end of things, like Sister Joyce said in church one time, it's just stuff. One of these days, it's all going to belong to somebody else anyway, and so there's no need to fret over a whole lot of stuff like that. And he goes on and say, and your reward shall be great, and you shall be the children of the highest, for he is kind unto the unthankful and to the evil. I want, one of these days, I'm going to, hopefully not today or tomorrow, but one of these days I'm going to die, and I'm going to go and got a place over here in the city cemetery where I'll be if anybody wants to come by and see me. But it's, you know, me and my wife, we've got our places over there. There's even a tombstone over there already where you could go find that. But we have on those on our stone there. It's a joint stone, and on my side, it's got a bunch of carpenter tools engraved in the side of it. And then over on her side, it's got an older lady in a rocking chair with some grandkids around the chair. And those are the kind of things that we can be remembered by. But more important than all that, right in the center of it, we have a Bible in there. And it's got Romans 10:13 on it that says, for whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. And the mindset there is that's how I want to be remembered. I may not be the best Christian that has ever been, but I want to be remembered as being the best Christian that I could be. And that's important to me. My testimony is important to me. And that kind of keeps me on a straight and narrow on that. But he goes on down here, and this is a thing that we get all the time when Christians begin to testify or, well, you're judging me, you know, about everything under the sun. This is the favorite verse of people that don't want to deal with their own reality a lot of times. It's always easier to point out than it is to point back. And that's why I've had so much trouble with this lesson all week. But the verse says in verse 37, chapter 6, verse 37, it says, judge not, and ye shall not be judged. Condemn not, and ye shall not be condemned. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven. It's not my place to judge anybody's salvation about whether they're a good Christian or bad Christian or a Christian or not a Christian. That's not my place. But yet, at the same time, we do judge things. We in the sense that we don't judge a person's salvation. But Paul said over, and it doesn't make the Bible butt heads, but Paul said we should look at all things circumvently or from all sides. And we are free to draw conclusions. And if those conclusions come up where they're not for Christ, then no, we don't have to support those things. We're not told to support them, and that does not fall under this verse here of judge not, and ye shall not be judged. Now, there is some judging that I have to do in my own life as well as you have to do in your own life. And part of that is that I have to, when the Holy Spirit convicts me of things, then I have to deal with that. I have to judge that as to the right and wrong of that. And he wouldn't be convicting me if it wasn't wrong. But then I have I have an obligation to correct that. Luke and Paul both, in their own places in there, says that we as Christians should examine ourselves to see whether we be in the faith or not. That's in several places. I'm going to have to quit. Done run over my time. So anyway, before I dig my hole any deeper, I'm going to quit. So you guys have a good week.